So hello, from Sherry Forsyth, a peak performance coach, sitting in a beautiful sunny summer's day in South Africa. You can see the very blue sky behind me and just sitting outside and enjoying the beautiful weather. What I'm going to talk about today is the final of the series on the book that I have so appreciated, The 5 Things that We Cannot Change by David Richo. And this book has been very profound in its teachings. So I'm just going to do an overview today of the 5 different things and take it kind of to the next level. We've done each one individually and spoken about them at the very most basic level. And who knows, maybe in time we'll do it a second time round at a deeper level. But I'm just wanting to get a few general ideas and principles in place. And then at the end, there is an exercise that I want to introduce you to, which I think is amazing. It helps us really live out our compassion. It teaches us how to improve in our compassion. And so I think that is a very valuable exercise, so hold on for that. So really what we're looking at is those 5 givens that David Richo speaks about. And I'm just going to go over them again very, very briefly, just to remind you. So the first one is everything changes and ends. Okay, the second one is nothing goes according to plan. The third one is that life is not always fair. The fourth one is that pain is part of living. And the last one is people are not loving and loyal all the time. Okay, so those are the 5 givens. In other words, these are a lot of the challenges that we face in our living. And these givens are what is, not what we wish for. So we can fight them and bear the consequences of fighting against them, or we can embrace the serenity of letting go and realizing that we can't control the uncontrollable. So instead of fighting to control, it's a battle we'll never win. So let's let go of that need for control and step into being able to trust and embrace and accept what life is with these 5 givens and not try to change and control it. So that's essentially what I'm going to be speaking about today. So if we take the 5 givens one at a time, let's just look generally what we really are trying to deal with. So the first one is everything changes and ends. So what that really is saying is we need to embrace impermanence. We need to embrace the process of change, and change never happens immediately. People think you can go to get an aha moment or go to a life coach or a psychologist and the change will immediately happen. You'll come to the realizations and then your life will change forever. Change takes time. Okay, it is a process, and as long as we embrace that, that's fine. So the first thing is with the first given, everything changes and ends. Nothing is permanent. We need to embrace change. And so the emotion that's needed in this particular given is we need to move towards acceptance, but also the excitement of change, the courage to change. Right, moving on to the second one, which is nothing goes according to plan. What are we really saying here? Okay, we need to embrace the fact that we can't be in control. We are not in control. So we might plan away, but there are bigger ideas and there's a bigger picture involved. So this second one, saying that nothing goes according to plan, is we can't control everything. So the emotion that we need to work with is we need to trust the process, trust ourselves, trust other people. Okay? The third one, life is not always fair. We need to learn to embrace the fact that everybody is different. What is really easy and wonderful for somebody might not be in our life's experience. So we need to embrace the differentness of everybody. And in that we need to learn the emotions that we're working with is acceptance, being non-judgmental, and realizing that we each have our own particular path that we're dealing with. The fourth one is that pain and suffering are part of life, and very simply what we are dealing with in this, the fourth given, is we just need to learn how to deal with pain and suffering. It sounds so easy. I know it's a very difficult thing. And in the workshops that I do on grieving, on forgiveness, we take a lot of these topics in depth so that you know exactly how to do them. So when we're looking at embracing pain and suffering, we're looking at being able to have the emotional resilience to weather the storm, and we're also looking at growing our own compassion, self-compassion as well as compassion for others. And then the fifth one is that people are not loving and loyal all the time. So what we're looking at here is we need to realize and be able to work through hurt and betrayal. The big thing is that even though people may hurt and betray us, our choice is always to love with compassion and kindness. So that's our big challenge with the fifth one. And the emotion that we're needing to grow into are forgiveness and unconditional love. Okay, so I hope those make sense as a brief overview of what we're doing, what we're talking about when we look at these 5 big challenges. And they are big challenges. So I'm not saying they're easy to do. So the first thing that we need to do is for you to decide if you agree with these challenges and whether you accept them and you want to live your life according to them. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I think puts all of these into focus is really what we're talking about is the Serenity Prayer, which Reinhold Niebuhr is responsible for very kindly putting out into the world. I'm sure you all are very familiar with it. But what these 5 givens are saying is the Serenity Prayer, which I'm going to read to you anyway. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that's really what we're trying to embrace when we look at these 5 givens and we say yes to them. Okay, so because we've got no control over these things, we can choose to hold on to them. We can choose to try and control them. And what is that going to result in? We're going to be fighting against what is. We're going to be fighting against what is. Okay, and that can lead to a lot of anxiety, to frustration, to anger, to stress, to feeling what if or why me. So it leads to a lot of angst. Or we can choose to let go of the need to control and to say yes to these 5 givens of life. And if we say yes to them, we're going to gain, and we work through them, I need to say, we're going to gain a lot. We're going to gain courage, compassion, and wisdom, loving kindness, gentleness, all those beautiful soft words, acceptance, serenity, peace, calm, and this really is the road to happiness. If we embrace these 5 givens, it stops our sense of entitlement, the arrogance of entitlement, and we realize that we need to embrace life as it is, not as we want it to be. So this is meaning that we embrace reality, not our expectations of what it should be. How dare we be so arrogant? Okay, so if we're looking at embracing this in a mature way, a mature prayer is not, oh, don't let all those awful things ever happen to me. A mature prayer is, help me to go through the challenge, to grow through the challenges of life. So in other words, we accept they're going to happen. We accept these 5 givens, and what we're asking for is to have the courage, the wisdom, the emotional resilience to grow through them and not beat ourselves up because we're experiencing them. Does that make sense to you? So when we embrace these 5 givens, what we are doing is we are giving ourselves the chance at growth. We giving ourselves the chance to weather the difficulties and the hardship. And we are embracing them and living our lives according to them. So if we're going back now to speaking about immature or mature prayer, what happens when we pray for something and God doesn't deliver? What does that do to our faith? So let's say we're praying for this wonderful, perfect partner. What happens when that partner's not delivered? Is our faith going to be hammered a little bit? Probably. But also how arrogant that we can choose what to demand of God or your superior power, that we put in our little wish list and then we're angry when God doesn't provide. That's not really faith, is it? That's not really trusting, is it? That's being arrogant. So along those lines, I know of a woman who was very ill with cancer, and she had a group coming to pray for her healing, and sadly she wasn't healed. And this group dared to say to her that, oh, well, my darling, obviously your faith is not strong enough, which is why you haven't been healed. How dare they? How dare they be so judgmental? But that is the kind of thing we're dealing with when we don't accept these 5 givens. Okay, so if we choose not to embrace these 5 givens, we seek to escape them. And there are lots of ways we can escape reality. So we can avoid them by addictions, by thinking we know certain things, so we hide behind our intellectual prowess. We deny the importance of them. We pretend they're not happening. We hide behind masks. I mean, the list is endless as to what we do when we are trying to avoid just living in the reality and authenticity of life. So we can seek refuge in that avoidance. Okay, we deny that they're happening. We deny that our life is not perfect. And what does that result in? The minute we are into denying and avoiding, what we are starting to do is we're going to be living behind masks, and in doing that we are lacking authenticity, and because we lack authenticity, vulnerability, and being realistic, we are actually distancing ourselves from other people. And by distancing ourselves, we lack the connection, and we're wired for connection. So we don't want that, do we? We want to be able to embrace these 5 challenging things in a positive way. So how do we do that? So for the first one, which is that things change and they end, the positive message in that is we need to learn to grieve and let go. Easily said, I know it's a difficult process, but I'm trying to make it simple today. Okay, the second given, which is that things don't always go according to plan. The positive in that is we need to be open to new possibilities, different ways of doing things, different ways of living. The third given is life is not fair, so we need to then learn how to work for justice. Okay, how to work for justice. I apologize for the dogs barking in the background. Someone just arrived at our house. Okay, the fourth one, which says that pain is part of living. We need to experience pain with fortitude and courage and not expect to be exempt from pain. Remember, pain is part of living. And then the last one, people are not loyal and loving all the time. We need to practice loving kindness. So what is loving kindness? Okay, we kind of hear about it. So I'm going to give you in a nutshell what loving kindness is. Okay, we love to give and receive, both of them. It has to be in balance. We're wanting to show our humanity and acceptance and love to humanity in general, and that includes ourselves. We want to exhibit unconditional friendliness and love to ourselves and to others. We want to show a willingness to be able to allow ourselves to express the feelings we need to express, and equally we need to be open to the feelings that other people express so that we can be with them and treat them in an empathetic way, without judgment, without blame, without interpreting them, but just accepting them as they are. And lastly, loving kindness means that we really accept that we are all interconnected. Okay, we don't live as separate human beings. So in saying yes to the givens, we say yes to living our lives with reality, where we trust the process of life, we trust ourselves, being able to handle what life throws at us, and we have acceptance of this process. So in addition, there's these lovely soft words that are going to come back at us as well. Okay, so we are going to live according to acceptance. We're going to overcome our fears. We're going to avoid trying to control. And this results in more peace and serenity, more meaning. It helps us to be fully engaged in life. In other words, we're going to dive right in for the good and the bad. It results in more authenticity, greater connection with others because we are able to be real and vulnerable and authentic. And I think it's all summed up pretty much in the fact that if we say yes to the givens, we're saying yes to having a very generous attitude towards life. Okay, and this I think is really important, a generous attitude towards life. Okay, so having spoken about the fact that these are the 5 givens that are quite challenging, I want to also mention that there are 4 givens that are positive and that are part of our nature. Doesn't matter what we're going through, we have these in bucket loads if we want to just tap into them. Okay, so what are they? So we're going to do our best to tap into the first one, which is love. Okay, what is love? It's the wish that all beings are well and happy, living meaningful lives, contributing to each other, supporting each other, being kind and gentle with each other. Okay, so the first positive given of our nature is love. The second one is compassion, being touched by pain of others and wanting them to be free of their suffering. And so compassion involves being compassionate to others, as well as the very underrated self-compassion. And if you are needing self-compassion, the lady you need to go and have a look at or Google is Kristin Neff. That's with a K, and she is the guru when it comes to self-compassion. I'm going to give you an exercise on compassion shortly. Then the third positive given that we all experience is sympathetic joy. And what this means is that we are really excited and happy for the good fortune and the success of others. We honestly can rejoice with the fact that they are achieving well. And then the fourth one is equanimity, which means serenity, being balanced, being grounded. And so all of these four givens are at our fingertips, and they will help us in being able to weather the five things we cannot change. In other words, those 5 challenges that David Richo mentions. So I hope this is all making sense to you, and that we are tying it up in quite nice little bows for you. So I want to talk about this, the practice again of the 5 challenges that we have, and I'm going to link them to a process called Tonglen. Okay, so this is the process that allows us to be more compassionate. It's something that my husband and I do every morning when we have our meditation and mindfulness, and it is amazingly impactful in helping us to learn how to convert pain of ourselves and others and convert that into compassion. So how do we do this process? In a book by Pema Chodron called When Things Fall Apart, she describes this process very well. So the Tonglen practice, essentially what it does is it helps us to harness pain and convert it into compassionate thoughts that will allow for the relief of that pain. I mean, how good does that sound? So the way we do it is, the first step is we sit mindfully and center ourselves, rest our minds, just pull ourselves towards ourselves. When we've done that, and obviously we're going to be doing our deep breathing to get a very calm center. The second part is that we're going to now look at different textures, different feelings, different emotions that are not related to anybody specific, but we just like practicing, okay? Practicing, so we're going to breathe in things like dark, heavy, claustrophobic, hot emotions, okay? We're going to breathe in the pain of that, and we're going to let go by breathing out light, cool, bright, fresh, open air. Okay, so we breathe in the pain and we breathe out what we need. That is the process of Tonglen. Okay, so the third part of the process is, let's look at emotional pain that we might be in personally. We're going to breathe in that pain. We might not know the name of it, but we can feel it. We can feel it in our gut, we can feel it in our chest. We breathe in that pain. We sit with the reality of it. We're not trying to change it. We're not trying to make it easier. We take it as it is, breathing it in, and then we breathe out what we need. Okay, we breathe out what we need. So I'm going to give you an example of, let's say that we are sitting with a difficulty with a relationship with friends, maybe. Let's say a friend has hurt us. We're going to breathe in the hurt, the betrayal, the anger maybe, just as it is. We breathe it in, and then we breathe out what we need. So we might be needing calm, maybe understanding of our friend, forgiveness, maybe acceptance. Okay, so we breathe in the pain and we breathe out what we need. And the second step to this is when we breathe in our pain, we think of the pain of everybody else in the world who's suffering that same pain. And when we breathe out what we need, once again, we think of what we need as well as what the rest of the world needs when they are suffering that same pain. So we breathe out to the world the understanding, the forgiveness, etc. Okay? And then the fourth part of the process of Tonglen is when we know of somebody else who's in difficulty, and we breathe in their pain. So this is where we really start being compassionate in steps 3 and 4. We breathe in their pain, and then we breathe out to them what will release them from that pain. Okay? And likewise, the second step to that is when we breathe in their pain, we then open ourselves to many others who are suffering that same pain. And when we breathe out to release them from that pain, we think not only of them, but other people as well. So when we practice Tonglen, we don't have to do all 4 steps. We certainly need to do step 1, which is sitting mindfully. Step 2, giving ourselves a little bit of practice. But then we can choose either step 3, which is our own pain, or step 4, which is somebody else's pain. And the wonderful thing about Tonglen is you can do it wherever you are. You don't have to be sitting quietly and meditating. When you come across somebody suffering from pain, you can immediately go into Tonglen. They don't even know that you are doing it. And what that does is it helps us to transform our pain and suffering into a realization of what they are needing, and that immediately helps us to be more passionate, and it helps with our empathy. So I hope that you will try that this little process of Tonglen, and if you have, I would love to hear about how you are finding it, whether things have changed for you. So please feel free to put a comment in the box below, or as always, I'm happy for you to share things on my website, which is sherryforsythcoaching.com, obviously www.sherryforsythcoaching.com, or you can drop me an email on sherryforsyth@gmail.com, spelled CHERRYFORSYTH@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you and how you are finding that tool. So in conclusion, let us go into life by feeling it fully, by being all that the situations are asking us to be, by not avoiding or denying them. And we're not going to try and fix them or change them. We're going to experience them as they are and grow and learn from them. And this really is the path to happiness, acceptance, transformation, and ultimately wisdom. So I hope that you have found this to be of value, and as always, if you have, I ask you to share it with others. This is the end then of the series that we've had on David Richo's book. From next week, I will be embracing on a new series yet to be determined. But I thank you for joining me, and I look forward to our live Facebook again next week, same time. And in the meantime, practice your Tonglen. Thank you so much. Bye.